Thank you, Brother Richard, for sitting down once again for Behind the Final Call cover story. And of course, this is volume number 38, number 37. Date on the paper is June 18, 2019. The cover story is Islam Dignifies. Of course, as we always ask, why this cover story?
Well, first of all, walaikum salam. Thank you for having me. You know, we thought this was pretty important because the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and a 17-member delegation from the Nation of Islam spent like the last 10 days of the month of Ramadan in Saudi Arabia, in the holy city of Mecca, as well as Medina, Jeddah, and other cities. So for the Muslims, this is a very special time, Ramadan, a month of fasting and prayer. So to be able to visit Islam's holiest shrines during that time was really a very special religious experience. The minister and the delegation were guests of the King of Saudi Arabia. And they were able to stay right in a hotel overlooking the Kaaba. And the Kaaba is the spiritual center for Muslims. It is an ancient house, if you will, an ancient site. And so Muslims, we are commanded to make a pilgrimage or to travel there to the Kaaba once in our lifetime if we're able. So it becomes a massive sea of humanity, people from different colors, different races, different countries, different nationalities, but all proclaiming the oneness of Almighty God, Allah. You also, during this pilgrimage, you go to different historic sites that have great significance in Islam. For example, the cave where Prophet Muhammad of Arabia, peace be upon him, received his call of prophethood. The hills of the Safa and the Marwa, which these are the hills that Hagar in the Bible runs back and forth seeking some kind of aid. And when she finally almost gives up, she lays down and there's a well at her feet, the well of Zemzem. Mm-hmm. So this was a very important trip, and so many of the Muslims who went, the national assistant to Minister Farrakhan, members of the minister's personal staff, the head of the women of the Nation of Islam was on the trip, the national secretary for the Nation of Islam was on the trip, the head of Muhammad University here in Chicago was on the trip, and others were on the trip. So it was a very powerful experience, and we wanted to showcase that. So we have pictures from Saudi Arabia, pictures of the delegation, and you can get it all at finalcall.com, or you can get your print edition and really kind of get a feel for what it was like for our delegation and for the minister to be part of this. How exciting it was to go to these places where the founder of the Nation of Islam, Master Fard Muhammad, is from. He's actually from the holy city of Mecca. And the city's historic sites written of in Islamic history and mentioned in the Holy Quran. So a very powerful, moving experience.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And of course, as you mentioned, of course, we recently have completed Ramadan, and the importance and value of making this journey during the month of Ramadan. And of course, we're thankful that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and his delegation have returned safely. There's a lot of reflections of the individuals who made the journey. Can you share some of those with us?
Well, we actually have these reflections two different places, right? Mm-hmm. We decided to pull out some of the reflections to kind of highlight as excerpts, but the full reflections are in the overall piece. Mm-hmm. But when you read the excerpts, if you will, you hear from the Muslims their gratitude. Everyone in the delegation expressed gratitude in being able to travel with the minister, and everyone expressed great thanks and appreciation to him for choosing them to accompany him on the delegation. but in their own way, all of them kind of bear witness to their faith in Allah and what it was like to experience these very historic sites at this time. To take pilgrimage during Ramadan or to make Umrah is very special. And so they talk about that, what it meant in their personal lives, in their faith, in their recognition of Islam. The other thing is, I think that what you get from all of them is a feeling that the trip increased their faith in what they believe based on the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
That's right.
And as Muslims, as Brother Mustafa, our student supreme captain, said, he said, there's nowhere you could go. There's no way you could go, rather. There's no way you could go to Mecca and go to the Kaaba and see how they've now built all around these structures, hotels and halls and the great mosque. He said there's no way you could see the progress being made and not be proud as a Muslim. So this was a very deeply personal and spiritual trip. And his brother Saad Ali Muhammad, who used to be Brother Burvey, a number of the pilgrims and other members of the delegation, I think pretty much everybody received the holy name if they didn't have one. And so, but he talked about how the way that the members of the Nation of Islam were received. You're not received that way if people don't perceive you to be genuine Muslims. So again, just little signs and little, and big, not only small signs, but big signs and big recognition that we can be assured that we are on the right course. We just have to stay the course. So you can read excerpts from those personal reflections, and then when you go into the main story, you can see fully. And I encourage everybody, go into the main story, because there's really some great points that everybody makes. Everybody's speaking in their own way. Everybody's sharing from their own view. So it's pretty incredible.
Yes, sir. And I took some time to begin to read those. And people that, you know, most of those who are on the delegation, I know them and have had conversations, but to hear their words and their reflection, you can definitely see that it was they were very much so impacted. And people that you don't think really talk that much. Yeah. They definitely was a blessing to be able to read their words. So, of course, there's another piece of that is important that people take note of, is really kind of some of the words that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan shared in a prayer at the site which the Battle of Uhud took place. Yeah. So can you share what that battle was and kind of share some
Well, this was an important battle in the history of Islam, because you know, early on the Muslims had to fight. As a matter of fact, they were commanded by Allah to fight, because the enemies at the time were trying to decimate the Muslims. They were trying to wipe them out. Very small community. So the Muslims were commanded to fight in the name of Allah. So the Battle of Uhud is one of those battles. But one of the important things about this battle was that the Prophet told certain troops, including archers, to take certain positions and to hold those positions. So during this historic battle, the Muslims were winning. As they were winning, some of the Muslims deserted their posts to try to claim some of the spoils of war. And when that happened, the enemy that was in retreat came back, and the Prophet himself was wounded. So the minister was so affected by this that he said a special prayer, and he talked about the lesson. And you really need to, as you said, you really need to read this. You really need to read this. But he talked about how the need for obedience to the Prophet, the need for obedience to Allah. And we know that obedience to the Prophet is obedience to Allah, because the Prophet carries Allah's message. But he talked about how there's a lesson for us, and in particular for those of us in the Nation of Islam. that anytime Allah grants us a victory, we should be careful. That it's not the time to gloat, it's not the time to revel, but it is time to celebrate the praise of our Lord and seek His protection. In other words, when Allah blesses you with victory, that's not a time to be boastful and self-important. It is a time to thank Him and be mindful that you're being blessed and act accordingly. So the minister talks about that, and he talks about the battle we face in America. See,
That's right.
This is the other thing. There's nothing that is done or that's talked about that doesn't reflect back on our work in America. So this is a great pilgrimage for Muslims. We are part of that international global community of Muslims, but we have a specific work to be done here in North America. And so the minister, talked about what the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, did for the old world in bringing Islam. He said, but there's a whole new world that has not heard, that has not accepted, that has not been taught. And so our job is now to do in the new world what the Prophet of Islam did in the old world. So it's a very beautiful prayer. And again, we encourage you to read it, whether you look at it online, it's on finalcall.com, or if you get the print edition, or if you get the digital edition, which is on sale for just 99 cents right now.
The time is running out.
But you know, so you better get it on in there. But I mean, a beautiful prayer.
Yes, sir. Praise to Allah. Thank you. And it really stuck out to me of just the minister's closing points. And I'm not going to read the whole thing. It says, so as we return to our place of battle, we await martyrdom to establish Islam in America and in the Western Hemisphere, as Prophet Muhammad established Islam throughout the old world. But he left the job of the new world to another people who would come up with faith in Allah and faith in Him, and taking on the mind and the spirit of the Prophet.
Absolutely. So that just tells you where we at.
Yes, sir. And just for those who have some other image in their mind on what Islam is and what that means, and I'm not going to pretend that I have full understanding, but Islam, we're taught, means submission to the will of God, which brings about peace.
Absolutely.
And which is the nature of man. So all of us are seeking, and everybody's seeking peace. And all that we do, we're really just trying to find peace. But unfortunately, when we don't follow Allah's divine guidance, we get temporal peace, and then we have to deal with the negative side effects and consequences. So very important that we establish and look forward, and don't look at this as a whole bunch of people who going to be running around setting out bombs. The image that many may have of Islam is just definitely not that.
And even with those who have engaged in that activity, we should understand that most of those who have been killed have been other Muslims. We should never forget that. And the message that the minister brings is counter that.
Yes, sir.
Because we don't carry weapons, we don't believe in being aggressors, we don't attack anyone unjustly, we don't bomb places, we don't do any of that. We just reserve the right to protect our lives if we're threatened. And so there's a whole reality that comes from, and the minister is really striking a revolution, an Islamic revolution, if you will, in America, without firing a shot, without us harming anyone. Because if you can get to the mind and hearts of the people with the truth, that's where the real revolution takes place.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So, in addition to that, of course, the article really, or this paper, edition of the paper, really elevates and exemplifies the value and importance of Islam. And for any black man, woman, or anybody interested in getting a deeper knowledge of themselves and the way that things are and why they are, you need to get the book Message to the Black Man. Message to the Black Man in America by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And every week you get words from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad from one of those books. Be it The Fall of America, Our Savior Has Arrived, but Message to the Black Man is a book that you definitely need to have. And so there's words from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad that are lifted, that really tie into the minister's article as well. And the minister's article comes from a lecture that was done in 2001, but the title of the the article from the ministers, Islam and an Invitation to All Humanity. So you mind touching on those two articles?
Well, I think first of all, Islam Dignifies is the title of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's article, taken from Message to the Black Man, and there's also, of course, the headline for the paper. So it was a perfect match in that sense. But in this article, I mean, I really hope that we will go to finalcall.com and read it, go to store.finalcall.com and buy Message to the Black Man, or get the print edition, or get the digital. Because some of the things that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says are really so important. And he lays out in this article why he stresses the religion of Islam for his people, the so-called American Negro. So I'm just going to read one. He says, first and most important, Islam is actually our religion by nature. It is the religion of Allah God, not a European organized white man's religion. Unfortunately, we don't know the history of Christianity. Unfortunately, we don't know the history of the Western Church. We don't even know there's an Eastern Orthodox Christian church. We don't know why there was a split. We don't know why there's a Protestant movement. We don't know why there's an Anglican church in England. We don't know why the Catholic Church and the Pope is so central to Western civilization. We don't know about Constantine. We don't know about the Council of Nicaea. We don't know about the creed that the Catholic Church uses, where it came from, how it came about. We don't know about the Bible and missing books, quote unquote, because the Bible was composed a certain way hundreds of years after the death of Jesus. We don't know this. So we assume, since we've only been taught by our slave masters, that what they taught us is correct, but it couldn't be, because the thing that they taught us, they used to enslave us, but they even had a special Bible for the slaves that omitted much of the Bible. So if the book is holy, why would you omit elements specifically, purposely, because you don't want anything that might bring light to your slaves? So it shows that this wasn't a religion organized, concocted, conceived, administrated, and fed to the world by Caucasian people. So check out the history of Western religion. Check out the history of Christianity, the history of the Catholic Church. Check out reformers. Why is Martin Luther so important? And why was there such an effort to reform the Catholic Church? They claim who? Peter is the first pope? But come on, man. Peter had nothing to do with the founding of the Catholic Church. Absolutely nothing. There's no direct way you can trace him historically to the Catholic Church. So you got to go to Emperor Constantine and that whole move by the Roman Empire to adopt a version of Christianity as the faith of the state that they use as something to galvanize the empire as they went about conquering other people. So these are very important things. So when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad writes what he writes about Islam, I mean, he says that the fourth thing, Islam removes fear and makes one fearless. It educates us to the knowledge of God and the devil, which is so necessary for our people. So what knowledge could be more important than the knowledge of God and the devil? What could be of greater benefit to a people who have been hurt, damaged, destroyed, terrorized, than to have a religion that removes fear from their hearts?
Yes, sir.
Beautiful article by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. The minister's article talks about the beauty of Islam, but it talks about the need for a deeper understanding of Islam. And it talks about Islam as taught by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, given to black people a certain way so that we would rise, because we needed something special. And so, I mean, it's a very, very beautiful article that again calls for the unity of Islam above different sects and parties and schools of thought. So again, a piece that should be read, and I hope that everybody will take the time to do that.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Now, one of the things that I noticed, and honestly, I look forward to, at one point in time in my life, having the opportunity to go to the holy city of Mecca. And I know a particular brother that comes to mind who has had that opportunity, and just how that feeling and the energy that, you know, he's shared, and of course, even from the words of that delegation that they've had. And when you see the potential and the power of Islam, and about Muslims being able to be amongst Muslims without the outside influence, what type of world and society that can be and what that looks like.
Yeah.
And the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and I've been saying it a lot more lately, lifting the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's words of separation being the best and only solution, is that we have to be in a place, not just, of course, the first steps we've talked about of being mentally and spiritually, but we can't really achieve what we need to achieve amongst people who have a totally and direct opposition against us. So just lifting that spirit, the importance and value of us separating physically, and you can just see it and hear it in the words of those individuals not having to be around those who.
Well, you have two different and competing identities, two different and competing natures, two different histories, and the history of the slave master and the history of the former slave. How can they ever see things the same way? How can they have the same God when the slave master is praying for perpetual slavery and the slave is praying for freedom? Now, which prayer is God going to answer? If the heroes of your nation held slaves, how can I, as the son or the children of slaves, look at them as being heroes when they murdered, oppressed, and killed our people? So there's certain fundamental differences, certain fundamental conflicts. In this history, the reality is it isn't getting better. It seems to be getting worse. You know, there's now this whole movie series out, When They See Us, about the Central Park Five. 5 young black men, young black boys accused of a crime that they didn't commit, jailed for years, suffered for years. Some of their families had to move out of New York because they were accused of the brutal, heinous murder and almost rape of a young white woman in Central Park. Turns out they had nothing to do with it, and there was another man who was a known rapist and killer, who later confessed. And as one of the brothers that was part of the Central Park Five talked about, he had to confess over and over and over and over and over again to get people to believe it was him. So he had to give up certain details about the crimes. He had to tell them about murders maybe that they didn't even know about. You know, so, and then today still, there's some that claim that in some way these young men were involved. So with that kind of dichotomy of experience and mindset, I don't think you can be at peace, because you're perpetually at war to get what's yours, and they're perpetually at war to keep you from getting what you should have.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I'm going to touch on, of course, we want to touch on the 2 articles, the columns, and then we can go to the editorial. But the Facebook ban on the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, as well as Hart's hypocrisy is disheartening. Can you just kind of summary on what's going
again,
on?
Again, a couple more perspectives defending the minister. Brother Jackie Muhammad talks about the Facebook ban, and he talks about the role that the ADL and others have played. And he talks about how you can have lies on Facebook, no lies, but they won't take it down, but yet they oppose the truth that the minister speaks. And some other things in here that I think are pretty interesting. Then we have from Brother Saad Ali Muhammad, formerly Brother Burvey, who was responding to a letter or an op-ed, that was in the Chicago Tribune from Ari Hart, where brother defends the minister against the false charge of anti-Semitism. So you should check out both of those, because it's important that we get an understanding of who is attacking the minister and why, and we
Yes, sir.
deconstruct those arguments and those lies. Lastly, with the editorial, we just celebrating the month of Ramadan and highlighting Eid celebrations, the great coming together of the Muslims after celebrating a powerful month of fasting and prayer, our ability to come together, to embrace one another, to fellowship with one another, to pray with one another. So it's a very beautiful end to a very beautiful month.
Yes, sir. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I want to talk about really briefly and inform individuals of a few events that are coming up real soon. Of course, there's the brother Akbar Muhammad, who actually was part of the delegation, I believe, will be doing a Doing Business in Africa and the Caribbean Symposium in DC on June 19th to the 20th. You want to make sure that you get more information about that. Day of Encouragement for Blacks Fathers in Houston on June 16th. Our brother Shaheed, the math Dr. Muhammad, will be doing an event, Saving Our Boys, right here in Chicago. And that is on June 22nd, 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. right here at Mosque Marriott.
And you got Muhammad Farms.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Because our show was about to flip past it, and I don't want to pay the price for that. But they're actually, for those who are on the Nation of Islam mailing, so email probably be going out tomorrow or today. And the Founders Day, which gives you opportunity to go to the Nation of Islam's, one of the Nation of Islam's farms. And that will be on July 5th through 7th. And of course, you can get more information. The phone number is right here in the paper. Of course, you're going to get the paper as well, because it's not going to just depend on me. You want to be able to read all of this stuff and the details of it yourself. And last but not least, I believe is the coming up real soon, June 23rd.
June 20th.
June 20th to the 23rd. Thank you. In Cobra. We'll be having a reparations conference that's dealing with reparations, and by Allah's permission, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan will be speaking there as well.
Yeah, and in Cobra is the National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America, and this is a pretty powerful group. Great time to get information, to connect. So find out more about it. You can go to ncobraonline.org. That's N, the letter N, COBRA online.com. ncobraonline.org. ncobraonline.org. You can get more information. It's going to be a great conference. The theme is 400 Years of Terror, a Debt Still Owed. And so Cobra will talk about what reparations means in terms of the full repair of black people. I mean, again, a great event. You want to be there. The minister, inshallah, will be speaking along with some others. We're going to look forward to very informative workshops and a grassroots organization that has been working on this issue for decades in Cobra.
Yes, thank you. Of course, there's so much more in this paper.
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that we highlighted the trip, the delegation, but is there anything else?
Well,
and I hate saying that because sometimes it may seem like some stuff isn't important, but that's definitely not the case.
Well, that's why you got to get your own copy.
Come on.
Now, but we can't leave without talking about the legacy of the black cowboy from the Old West to Little Nas X and his song Old Town Road. So we got a little something about that in this week's paper.
Yes, sir.
So go on finalcall.com, get your digital edition, get the print edition, and check it out for yourself.
And man, you need to take advantage of this sale. I think it's 3 months for 99 cents, I believe.
Well, 99 cents a month, yeah.
Yeah, so, but that's not gonna go on forever. It's coming to an end, so you wanna take advantage of it and get a digital edition of the paper. Even if you already got a subscription of the physical paper, or even if you're getting the paper on a weekly basis for one of the brothers that's in the community, go ahead and support. Get the digital edition. You got 99 cents. We waste that like that. So
that's right.
Until next time, behind the Final Call cover story. See you then.
See you next week, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. Peace.
Okay.